Please welcome to the stage Calum Rodger, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. My name's Calum. I'm a PhD student at the University of Glasgow, where I study poetry. Although obviously I don't study all poetry, because that would take ages, and besides, most of it is shite. See, I specialise in modernism. Now, the thing about modernism is that no one's entirely sure what it is, least of all the people that study it. So people often ask me, Calum, what is modernism? Actually, no one's ever asked me that, ever. Which is a real pity, because I've composed a poem especially for that situation. I'd like to begin my set with it this evening. It's entitled, quite simply, Everything You Ever Need to Know About Modernism, but clearly don't care enough to even ask. It goes like this. Our story begins in 1910 when human character changed. At least that's when it starts in Britain. In France they were already insane. You see, way back in simpler times when it came to poems and paintings, it was beauty, God, idyllic things that always topped the ratings. And why? Because they all had ruddy cheeks and lived on farms. They petted hens and they danced wee jigs, or they worked unbearably long hours in factories making, I don't know, yarns. Let's not overcomplicate things. But then the 20th century came and they all moved to the city, and art imitates life, so they all said, let's make something shitty. So no more Colin Firthy types frolicking in mythical scenes. Think more Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rise of the Machines. Where once the poet claimed, here's heaven in a flower. The modern poet is more like, here, can you see a prick in the Eiffel Tower? And then, when things can't get much worse and everyone's like, fuck it, along comes this guy Nietzsche, and he says God just kicked the bucket. So it's bye to nature, bye to God, now we're better educated, we know the universe is meaningless and we're fucking alienated. So some put faith in politics and called for revolution, while other ones just sat around getting high on the pollution. You see, there's never been an epoch so twisted and unstable, but nothing's really changed since then, same shit but a different label. We're all mad minds mired in modernity's stench. Some blame the technology, but me, I just blame the French. So there you have it. Thank you very much. There you have it, 3 years of my research consolidated into 90 seconds of bite-sized edutainment. You see, I'm right at the end of my PhD now. I've only got a couple of months left. Things are getting pretty intense. It wasn't like this in my undergraduate days. Back then, you knew you'd slept in when you missed both episodes of Neighbours. They were good times. I used to roll out of bed at 6 o'clock, fix myself a bowl of Lidl brand Cocoa Pops, and there always seemed to be a double bill of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on the telly. Damn, that show was good. I actually was contemplating an undergraduate dissertation entitled Yo Holmes, Smell You Later, Will Smith's Ideological Critique. But my supervisor wasn't having it. I was ahead of my time, I guess. It's not like that now, of course. It's much harder to skive a tutorial when you're the one that's supposed to be teaching it. Not impossible, like, but harder. And as I reach this final hurdle, I'm increasingly asking myself what the point of it all is. And I always come back to the three same things. 1, I love poetry. 2, I don't have anything better to do. And 3, I really, really, really want to be called doctor. Now, I know I won't be a real doctor, like someone who heals the sick and stuff. I'll be a poetry doctor. Well, that's basically the same thing, right? The way I see it, my whole life is heading towards this moment when I'm in a plane 30,000 feet above the Atlantic and the call comes out, is there a doctor on board? I raise my hand. Yes, I proudly proclaim. The stewardess rushes over. Thank goodness you're here, doctor. We have a passenger on board who has fallen gravely ill. We don't know what the problem is. Can you give a diagnosis? Diagnosis? I pretentiously snort. No need for that, madam. I shall recite him some Keats. She looks at me incredulously at first, but then like some hard-hitting TV detective, I flash my credentials, DR on the passport, and she soon backs down. You can't mess with those kind of credentials. So she shows me to the patient who's racked up on some kind of makeshift hospital bed with a wee heart monitor that beeps, which they definitely have on planes, by the way. And as you know, I'm a doctor. Or at least I will be by the time this bizarre and highly unlikely fantasy comes to pass. So I'm standing over the patient, and in my most romantic and melancholy tones I begin to recite the words of Keats. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk. Doctor, doctor, it's not working, the stewardess exclaims. Don't you have anything stronger? Well, I say, I do have some Elliot. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Doctor, doctor, we're losing him. Don't worry, I calmly replied. This is modernism. A certain degree of alienation is the desired aesthetic effect. She doesn't get it. She should have read my poem. If only she'd asked. She goes on, but surely you must have something else, doctor, something the patient can actually respond to. Well, there is one thing, I say. It's the work of a 20th century American poet, much maligned in academic circles, but who has nevertheless brought joy to millions. Please, doctor, anything, she says. I reach into my pocket and pull out the holy parchment upon which his lines are etched. I tremble as I summon the courage to enunciate his holy words. Come on, Calum, remember your training. Remember those long, salubrious evenings in poetry school, munching little brand Cocoa Pops. A hush descends upon the cabin as the moment of truth arrives. Now, this is a story. All about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. So I'd like to take a minute. Just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became known as a prince of a town called Bel-Air. The heart monitor begins to steady. The patient's lips begin to part. The tension in the cabin is palpable as I crane my neck down to hear him speak in what is barely a croak the fateful words. In West Philadelphia, born and raised. And that's when I knew that everything was going to be okay. I left the plane to rapturous applause, with a glorious future stretching out in front of me as a Will Smith impersonator. Though not, it should be added, a particularly convincing one. Nevertheless, I remain to this day, in the words of the immortal bard, na 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 na, getting jiggy with it. Thank you very much.
Calum Rodger, ladies and gentlemen! Proving definitively that modernism is not what it used to be.